Past delegate, she passed away last year, said to me there was some stuff going on at the club where I was first attending AA meetings. And she said, "You are what now? 6 months sober?" I was about two, but I wanted her to like me. So, yes, 6 months sober. Yeah. "Michelle?" And she pointed her finger at me and she said, "That is not how women in recovery behave. It's unbecoming of Alcoholics Anonymous. And now you have that responsibility and you need to be a supporter of other women. We don't backstab each other. We don't talk behind one another's backs. We support one another. And if somebody's going through something, you ask how you can help." Well, I was grateful I wasn't part of that chicane that was all going on in the corner. But I'll never forget that. That is my responsibility.
I am responsible.
Yeah.
I heard it through the grapevine.
Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am Olis, an alcoholic in Oakland, California.
And I'm Don, calm and collected in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Don. It's a new month, and you know what that means, right?
Oh!
A new grapevine is here.
Woo-hoo! The new grapevines are here! The new grapevines are here!
You know, Don, one of the things that we're going to get to talk about today is old timers. You know, we call them long timers now.
Yeah.
At some point, we became correct. But, you know, I've been here long enough that I want what I've earned, and I want to be an old timer.
When are you an old timer?
You know, this is a really interesting thing. When I got here, I thought that you were an old timer once you had 5 years. And then I got 5 years and I learned that wasn't true.
And it doesn't feel like it when you have 5 years.
Well,
but it does seem like that's an old timer to someone who has 2
a day.
weeks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, and not to rain on anybody's parade, but in order to sit in the long timer section at the international conference, you have to have 50 years.
50 years?
50 years.
To be an old timer?
To be an old timer. So at 37, I'm still a baby. I was in an event last night, the 55th annual fundraiser for the Tri-Valley Service Center. And I was one of the babies in the room. 51, 55, 57 years sobriety.
Goodness
So
gracious.
at 37, I still have some nerve calling myself an old timer.
Let's see. I'm 72 years old. I have 37, 8, 9. I'll be 92. I'll be able to sit in. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I hope I'll be there.
We'll be there with our walkers. Don't you worry.
And we'll still be broadcasting, Alice. Nothing's going to get me away from this microphone.
Oh, Don, I love you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I got an old timer story when I was new. I guess I was about 3 months, and I was in the habit of going out to lunch after the noon meeting with my sponsor and his sponsor. And we were sitting there at the table. And, you know, these long timers seemed to me that they had a supernatural calm and the ability to self-examine themselves in the moment. And he was, my sponsor was telling this story about this employee that he was having a problem with. And he started saying, the guy said such and he stopped himself and went, no, I'm wrong. He decided right there, live on the spot, that the guy was right, and he said he's going to go back and make amends to him. And I'm like going, what in the world is this? AA thing is bizarre, man. Men just admitting that they're wrong. And
you know, for all of the people who are not long timers yet, I want to just tell you that the recovery that long timers have is democratically equally available to everybody. And it really is.
It's available.
It is available. You understand the spiritual exercises of unceasing, unsparing self-evaluation, that you could do that with a month. You could do that with a year and say, you know what, when I really tell the truth about this, I can see that I was wrong as 2 left feet. Or you can say, hey, maybe that person's right and I'm right too.
Mm-hmm.
No reason to have conflict.
Well, and experience has shown by being a long timer, if I do correct when I'm wrong, that
Yeah.
the situation's going to work out better.
Yeah.
Because, I've tried and tried and tried and tried for years.
To wrest satisfaction out of life?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, what's in our issue today?
This month, we are featuring long timers and them sharing really powerful stories about what it's like to be sober for a while.
In the story The Good Life, a guy who hasn't had a drink in nearly 5 decades writes about all the changes he's seen. In the 70s, our meetings were quite primitive. We had no chips, no daily reflections book, and no brewed coffee. What?
I know.
How did they do it without coffee?
I have no idea.
It's a miracle.
A miracle. In the story, All Is Well, a woman who got 12-step by her doctor has lived a full, healthy life for decades now, and she's only 83.
Woohoo! In a special bond, 4 men who got sober together long ago meet to catch up, laugh, and yes, share hugs.
And a woman who's always yearned to be an old-timer writes, it had everything to do with ego. I'd always wanted to be an expert at something. Becoming an old-timer, I figured, would qualify me as an expert in AA.
Uh-oh.
Now that she's there, she describes that she just, quote, is happy to have today.
Ah, yes. At the beginning of every issue, there's a news section, and this month, David R., publishing director of AA World Services, fills us in on how the Plain Language Big Book came into being. Now, that's an interesting interview.
Yeah.
Who's our guest today?
Don, today our guest is the author of Brighter Days. We welcome Michelle B. from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. Her story is on page 58 in the February 2025 issue.
But first, the news. Grapevine is looking for stories about technology and AA, where the digital meets the spiritual. Online meetings, hybrid meetings, smartphones, texting, meeting apps, social media, and yes, good old-fashioned phone calls. How has technology helped your sobriety and changed the way you connect with your sponsor, sponsees, and fellows? Visit aagrapevine.org/share and let us know. Stories are due by March 15th, 2025. Are you going to the International Convention in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, July 3rd through the 6th?
We need volunteers. We need
app ambassadors,
kiosk attendants,
Grapevine news and information carriers,
info booth attendants,
workshop facilitators.
Don't worry, we'll train you.
If you can help, write IC 2025 Outreach. That's IC as in International Convention, so it's IC 2025 Outreach at aagrapevine.org. That's IC 2025 Outreach at aagrapevine.org. We'll see you there.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm an alcoholic and I live in Kelowna, Canada, and I am a proud member of the Tuesday Ladies Book Study Group here in Kelowna. We're a hybrid meeting, speaking of technology.
Were you an in-person meeting first?
We were actually one of the oldest meetings in Kelowna and had a bit of a reputation of being the little old ladies meeting. And we were the first in our district to actually go online during the pandemic.
Yes.
And then our members, many of them do travel in the winter because we get winter in this part of the country. So many of them travel down south. And it was an opportunity for us to welcome members from other places as well as our own members when they do go south. So we are a hybrid meeting. I believe we are the only, there's another ladies meeting that's hybrid in Kelowna. They come and they go because it takes a little infrastructure. It takes a little doing to be a hybrid meeting and make it successful week after week.
It's true. I attend a hybrid meeting and it works very well, but we have a very big television screen and the sound is very good both ways for the people on screen and the people in the room, and everybody is there together.
Ours is a little more rudimentary because we borrow a Sunday school room that we wouldn't be able to have that kind of permanent infrastructure in the room. But it's never a big ask. And we do it with a couple of computer screens, and you come up to the laptop sitting on a desk like you would come up to a podium.
Yeah.
And that way everyone online can see and hear you, and then everybody in the room can see and hear. We do have speakers to make it accessible for those with different needs, and it works. Nobody's complained well, they complain about other things, but they don't complain about the hybrid.
They complain about the coffee. No.
Yes, we're into herbal tea now too, Olis.
You don't have coffee?
We do. We just have important issues at our business meetings, so we need to have lots of flavors for lots of
Lots of
folks.
flavors. Yes, I only drink chamomile. Michelle, I really want to appreciate you for being a myth buster because there is this myth that people who are older don't like technology or that the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, the spiritual food that we get, isn't transmittable through technology. And I love that you guys were the first, as an old ladies meeting, to pick up the mantle and say, we can do this.
It took us a little bit of time. We tried to bring in a TV monitor, for example. By the time we tried to hook it up and do all of those things, it just wasn't worth it. What we were doing was working so that the second laptop is outward facing and the group can see, and we have it on speaker mode so that when the person online is sharing, they fill the entire screen. Again, it's rudimentary, but we're in a little Sunday school meeting and we're only talking about 20 or so in person and almost an equal number sometimes online.
So each person who shares goes up to the monitor and shares into a computer as well as to the room.
Yeah, we sit right next to the chair. That way we can all sit and we can see each other. I can look at the faces of the women who are helping me stay sober one day at a time, and they can see me, and it works out. Everybody gets to see and hear one another.
What type of meeting is it? Is it a speaker meeting?
Oh, we don't have as many of those in this part of Canada where I'm from. It is a topic meeting. The first Tuesday of every month, we study that month's corresponding tradition. So in February, we will study tradition 2, and we read from the 12 and 12 and sometimes from the Grapevine and open it up to sharing. And the rest of the time, it's chair's choice, as long as it's conference approved literature or in the AA Grapevine.
Wow.
And more often, we are getting stories from the Grapevine. And this is what I love about our tradition meeting. Our 12 Traditions book from the AA Grapevine is how I began to experience the traditions as opposed to read about them.
The Grapevine book is called Our 12 Traditions, and it's available on aagrapevine.org.
A lot of people don't know that the Grapevine has books.
There's a library of Grapevine books. The Grapevine, which is the first place that Bill was able to get the traditions published, is where our preamble is. The number of publications is greater than the number of publications that come out of AA World Service.
And what's interesting you say that is I'm glad we're all talking about the plain language big book, because I just can't imagine how many alcoholics we're going to be able to access and make AA more accessible because of this. But the Grapevine has always been there and has always been accessible. And it is a great big snapshot of our fellowship as it exists today in all forms, all genders, all parts of the world. If you want to see if AA is current, we are current every single month. I mean, look at you guys with your podcast.
Michelle, you sound like an AA enthusiast. When did you get sober?
I got sober April 8th, 2015.
And what was going on that day that brought you to AA? What was going on inside of you that allowed you to say, I need help, I'm going to go to AA?
That particular day had been a wonderful day. And I decided after months of sobriety to pick up a drink. And as I picked up that drink, I went, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I phoned my sponsor. And she said, so what does this mean? I don't want to drink anymore. And she said, that, my dear, is a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
Would you like to reset your sober date? And I said, I absolutely would. Yes. Because I had been visiting AA for the previous 4 years.
4 years.
But I was surviving to the best of my ability on the fellowship. I hadn't cracked the big book yet, kind of read the big book. I mean, it was made a really good coaster at some points.
Michelle, did you know that you were visiting? Did you know that you were hanging out just in the fellowship?
No, I didn't particularly, though, think that I needed to do the steps because I could read them up there on the window blind on the wall.
That's a red flag.
And if the and if a sponsor wanted to go for coffee and talk about how lousy my life was, then I was willing to get a sponsor, but they had other ideas. I hadn't completely surrendered. I needed to try every single thing on my own to completely satisfy myself that I couldn't do this thing anymore. And then this angel appeared in the form of a sponsor. After that point, I was all in and I couldn't get to enough meetings. I couldn't start the steps fast enough. I couldn't wait to start to sponsor. Started at 8 months. And then I really learned about the big book.
Yeah, the best way to learn is to teach.
That's where I see myself, especially with the privilege of hearing those fifth steps. No matter how far down the scale they had gone, no matter how broken they felt, I felt it made them multidimensional. I felt it made them human. I thought it made them lovely, and I wanted to get to know them better. And these were all the qualities in myself that I had hated because I was a drunk mom.
Yeah.
And the best thing I ever did in my life was that little girl, and I became a drunk mom.
Mm.
And I just knew that no matter what, even if I got sober at this point, she was a teenager, we would never have the relationship that we had had when she was a little girl because I blew it.
Mm.
At least that's how I felt. And then I got to talk to other women and share with other women who felt exactly the same way.
How do you approach making amends when you have that kind of guilt? Like I had guilt for things I did in my life, and the steps were threatening because of that. Because I knew I was going to have to look at that and I was going to have to do something about it. And they said, read one step at a time. You're only on step one. You don't need to think about making amends. But I knew it was there. I can read ahead. And some of the amends were terrifying. What's your experience with that?
That was the biggest because I'd had so many false starts and stops. It's confusing when I would stay sober for periods of time and think, well, gee, maybe I'm really not an alcoholic. I don't need this. But once I picked up that first drink again, I never knew how it was going to end. And usually with me passed out in my bed, having no idea how I got there or how long I'd been there. And once again, not picking my little girl up from school.
Yeah.
So by this point, she was in first year university. I was really afraid maybe AA wouldn't work for me. And I was just never going to get my life back. And perhaps she could see some changes. And I remember she would go to university by the club where I went to the noon meeting every day. And one day, I think I was about 3 months sober, there was a note on my windshield that said, Mom, I'm so proud of you. You are my hero, Mom. Keep going. I am so proud of you.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. Something happens when we transform, when somehow I think God was always there. But I wanted to find God in my life. I knew that this was something that was lacking, that I needed, that I wanted. And I used, again, our literature to try and get there. And there was on one of our daily reflections one day, we were obviously on a God step. The reflection said something along the lines of, I want to feel God's love for me imitated in the way I treat others.
Mm.
I thought, well, there's a marching order I can understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not ethereal. It's not out there.
It's an action.
It's an action, yes.
I hear this beautiful connection between the piece that you wrote and this experience that you had with this, I'm here, but maybe I don't belong here. I'm here, but I'm not willing to do all the stuff. I'm here and I want to be here because, that I'm a good kid, or do you know what I mean? Like it's all this external stuff. But then I hear you talking about once it became internal, it was a different experience.
And I'm at the age now where I'm going to experience perhaps losing some people that I love very much. And what had precipitated with the article was we had to say goodbye to our little dog that we had had for 16 years. It was a little troubling for our family because when I would be passed out in bed, she wouldn't leave my side. And my husband couldn't get her to eat or leave me.
Yeah.
This was my dog. So I actually had a chance to make amends to the dog too, because she was only about 5 or 6 at the time. And so we had to put her down. And a neighbor just down the hall from the condo where we live went into hospital. She had pneumonia, turned into RSV, and she was gone a week later. And she was my best friend in our neighbor. My stepmom she was nearing the end of her journey with the disease that she had, and she had to be hospitalized. And as she was hospitalized, my dad had a cardiac event while she was there.
Whoa.
So it was
How long were you sober at this point?
9 years.
Bill talks about certain trials and low spots.
It is life, yeah.
It is.
This is what happens to all of us.
Did you lose your faith?
No, but I wasn't in the mood to talk about it. February is very cold and gray here anyway, so it fit the mood.
So you wanted to isolate?
I didn't have an option. I have too many service commitments, and I had too many other people and responsibilities and things I had to do. I was the DCM at the time, the district committee member of our district here, District 71 and Area 79, and other people were counting on me. And I have a sponsor, and I have a service sponsor, and I have a wonderful family and support network that I could talk to about those things.
Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous, because it allowed me for a few minutes of each day to step up and be the person that I was needed to be in that moment. If I'm chairing a meeting, everybody is coming. They've got their reports. They've got their committees they want to share about. GSRs, our general service reps, are all excited to be there, and they needed me to be there. It's not that I was being false to what or who I was, but I could compartmentalize just for the minute or two until I could have somebody that I could just share with in that real way.
The showing up part.
I've got a friend of mine who died last month. He was very active in our district. One of the things he did was print up business cards, and on the card is reproduced Dr. Bob's prescription pad, where he wrote on the prescription, "Always remember it. 1, trust God. 2, clean house. 3, help others." And Dr. Bob signed at the bottom of it. And you're describing, if I'm in despair, I need to help others. If I want to isolate, I need to help others. And being those commitments, these are the things that I put between me and drinking again.
Well, and then just like in early sobriety or before I was sober, those darn Grapevine magazines show up every month, whether I want them to or not. When I was out, it was a reminder of what I wasn't doing and what I wanted to be. And here it was one about grief. And the language they used to describe, you know how we sometimes say, I went to a meeting today and I heard exactly what I needed to hear. Had I not gone to the meeting, I wouldn't have heard it. Had I not cracked the spine on that particular Grapevine magazine, I wouldn't have read somebody say, I'm not hungry, but I can't get enough to eat. I am exhausted, but I can't sleep. It was everything, looking in the mirror and looking like I did when I had been drinking, that the physical toll that this had taken on me. And that's exactly how I felt, because I don't have a new thought or emotion. And knowing that someone else has been there like we have, and being able to share as honestly and be as open and raw and vulnerable as we can be with one another, it helped. It didn't bring them back, but it helped.
You know, the thing about being a part of a sacred society that's worldwide is that if you try, it's impossible to not have access to a member that has walked the path that you're walking, that can give you some experience, that can lift you up, that can tell you, I know how you feel and mean it. There's a way out, and show you what it is.
And here it is in an audio version. We are recording this that we can see one another's faces, and we all are leaning in closer and closer as though we were just getting more intimate. That we do that. And when I listen to the podcasts, I hear what the people are feeling. It's a very intimate medium.
Can you think of an obstacle, something that AA asked you to do that you didn't want to do, and then once you moved through it, you got the results?
Every single new thing I've ever been asked to do in AA, whether it was a step or whether it was an opportunity in service, I have not wanted to do, because I think you mentioned this earlier, Olis, about something about being an expert. I thought that unless I was perfect, nobody was going to want me. So the first time I had a chance to sponsor, I think I almost memorized the big book because I wanted her to think I knew what I was doing. So it's only in doing, and you know what's helped me work through that is this latest service position I've rotated into. I'm the chair of the Cooperation with the Professional Community Committee for Area 79. I have some really big shoes to fill. There's still that anxiety. But you know something? It's an exciting anxiety that keeps me alive because I recognize it now through experiences. That's the fear.
Yeah.
I was afraid to dive into Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm so egotistical that I thought I might be the one person AA doesn't work for. What if I really try and I fail? And I think that's my biggest fear when it comes up to anything. And I can see those fears as obstacles. But it's just fear. When I call it what it is, ego and fear, it's really hard to say no.
Yeah. You know, the irony of it is our perfectionism can do a couple things. It can keep us from trying, or it can make us jump all in. And when we have the courage to jump all in, the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous is then we have to rotate. Alcoholics Anonymous service structure is designed to get you to,
It's designed to keep you uncomfortable.
designed to keep you growing, that you get to a certain level of competency, and then you've got to move out of the way and let the next person struggle with becoming competent.
And that's where step 6 and 7, I could work in general service.
Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings.
If you want to see your shortcomings in neon, get involved in general service. There's no humility in perfection.
Oh, God, there's no humility in perfection.
No, there's no growth in perfection. I have seen the chair of our general service board say, I'm not sure I know the answer. Has anybody got the answer to that? And wait for an answer. Yeah. These are people who are supposed to know everything.
I know. I remember the first time that Teresa F. shared a meeting where there was a Q&A after on the 11th step. Fought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. What if I don't have that perfect? What if someone asks a question I don't know, Teresa? And she gave me the best answer ever. She said, say you don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have to be perfect.
And maybe that's the amend that you were alluding to, Don, earlier about with my daughter. Having God remove from me that defect of having to be perfect, perhaps that's the change and the amend that she needed to see.
Michelle, how did you come to write the story for the Grapevine?
Having so many losses, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then when I did the next intended thing, which was to crack the spine on that grapevine, and when I read that magazine, all of a sudden I felt part of, and I felt stronger and better. And how can I not share that? So I just pounded it out. I was wearing my pajamas. I came downstairs. I grabbed my keyboard. I pounded it out. It was ugly. It wasn't very nice. And I sent it right away before I changed my mind. And lo and behold, I find out it's going to be in the magazine only because you guys reached out to ask if I'd like to be on the podcast.
That happens a lot.
But I had no idea if it was going to help anybody. It's just that the Grapevine helped me. And if it can help me, maybe then I can help someone else too.
And you've helped us today.
Thank you.
It has been delightful.
Thank you.
Hey, Don, what are you playing with on your phone? We're supposed to be recording a podcast here.
Oh, sorry, Sam. Look, I was just checking my spiritual fitness in the new Grapevine app.
Oh, the daily spiritual maintenance checklist? Well, are you fit?
Yep, says so here. And look, there's a daily quote and a sobriety calculator.
And you can read the latest issue and all of the past issues all the way back to 1944.
And you can have the app read the magazine to you out loud as a playlist. It's the monthly magazine in print and audio.
Right in your pocket. The Grapevine and Lavinia apps are now available for both iOS and Android phones. To get yours, go to the App Store on your phone.
I'm at the very wit's end. Cuckoo.
Okay, this is the last round for you guys.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. You know, it's my wife who drives me to drink.
You're lucky. I have to walk.
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit AA.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.